Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be talking about the most exciting and thrilling part of being a streamer or content creator or simply just working taxes. Yeah, honestly, this topic sucks. But I want to talk about it because guess what? I'm going to be doing for my entire afternoon taxes. Yes, you guessed it. That's right, taxes. Now, I'm not going to go into major detail because I can't cover exactly how you should do your taxes or anything like that or any expert advice about taxes because, well, I'm literally doing it by the seat of my pants and I don't even know if that makes sense. As a content creator here in Canada, it's very difficult for some reason to find anybody. Maybe just because I live in Northern Ontario where it's like this small town and everyone is like, if you don't have a regular 9 to 5 with a T4, which is like your tax form that you get from your employer that says how much money they took from you for income tax purposes, blah, blah, blah. If you don't have that kind of job, or if you're not a regular like self-employed person who owns a business where you sell a service or product and you charge tax, they have no clue how to help you or what you should do. And the advice they give you is pretty much just, well, none. So with that being said, yeah, taxes. It's not fun, but you have to do it. And if there's something that I could say about taxes is that I've paid a lot of taxes. That's the only thing I can really say. And I can really tell you with absolute confidence is that in the last, I'm going to want to say 3 years that I've been, filing taxes, self-employed. Technically, I'm not a business because I can't actually own a business as a streamer because I don't sell the service or charge tax for anything. And if you guys are wondering, well, don't you charge tax for like merch and all that stuff? It's actually the way I do my merch. If you're selling your own product, potentially, but the way I do my merch is through Fourth Wall, which a lot of creators use, and they are the ones who receive the tax payments and charge tax, and then we just get a cut at the end of the day, whatever our profit is based off of prices that we set, and then the shipping and all that and the taxes is all handled by Fourth Wall themselves. So that being said, and I mean, some of this, someone might listen to this and be like, yo, you're doing something wrong here. And please let me know because nobody in the tax field can apparently tell me. But, I mean, filing taxes is really annoying in the first place, but it also is just like this thing where you hate doing it because you pay to the government for certain things, whatever they want to use their tax money for. But taxes is such a sensitive topic for many because I mean, myself included, we pay a lot of taxes, especially here in Canada, on our goods and services that we purchase. It's 13% tax where I live on absolutely everything except for food, technically, in a grocery store. But that's about it. And when you pay that much tax on a regular basis, and then you get income tax, and you got to pay that, I can tell you for sure that about 40 to nearly almost close to 50% of my income is paid to the government in taxes. So it's very disheartening when you look at how much you've made, and that's kind of what I'm doing today is income calculations of all the platforms I use, the merch and this and that and donations and whatnot. And then you calculate that, and then you minus your expenses, of course, but then you realize after expenses, your income is your net income is a certain amount, but then you owe tax on that income, right? So you try and expense as much as possible, whatever makes sense and what is actually legal to expense as a self-employed person. But at the end of the day, you still owe a lot of taxes based off that income and what bracket you're in. So there's little things that you can do. I mean, you could contribute to investments like RRSPs here in Ontario and Canada. It's a retirement savings plan. I just opened one up last year because before that, I just didn't have the purpose and honestly didn't have the money to invest. It's not a lot, but it does help you in retirement down the road, like years and years and years down the road. But it does help you in your income taxes when you say, I've contributed this much to an RRSP, and then they kind of like help you deduct how much tax you owe because of that. But at the end of the day, this year is a little bit different for me because of a few things. And it's regardless, you just realize how much you pay in taxes, and it is absolutely absurd. And sometimes I just sit here and say like, this is so much money that could be used. And when you're older, yeah, you don't have a mortgage to pay maybe because your house is paid or car payments and all that kind of stuff. But when you're younger, like I am, which I'm not that young, but when you're younger, you really need to use that money. It's hard to put away $5,000 and $10,000 and $20,000 and whatever how much you owe, because well, you need that money for rent, mortgage, utilities, food, expenses, yada yada yada, right? So it's difficult. Not a lot of people can get through that and really just kind of be comfortable with it. So the thing is, here in where I live, it's a little bit different now because last summer, in August, I received a notice from the government that said, "Hey, you owe us like 20,000 by like in like a few weeks." And I was like caught off guard. I've never had this before, and of course, I started streaming and being self-employed during COVID. So I was really thrown off by this because what I would normally do is I would do my taxes in February, March. As soon as I would see, I'd file them. I see how much I owed. I would go and pay that in one lump sum. And because throughout the year before, I would be saving and saving and saving as much as possible every month, taking little chunks. And, you tax yourself as self-employed to be able to pay that. And that's how I did it. But then all of a sudden, they're like, you need to pay this in advance. So in August, I got 2024, by the way, I got noticed I had to pay a certain amount of money for 2025 taxes, which I'm filing, now, like shortly, right? So I was very caught off guard by this. And this is maybe, if you're in Canada or Ontario at the very least, I mean, it might be different in different provinces, but pretty sure this is a Canadian thing. They restarted to advise people that if you owe more than $3,000 in your taxes based off of their stats, based off of I think they looked at the last 3 years, based off of the stats and your previous taxes, if you owed more than $3,000, well, you now have to do installments, like forced installments every quarter. So every 3 months, you have to pay a certain amount based off of the average that they dictate. So the government now says, hey, you owe us this much because you're in March or whatever, when you do your taxes, you're going to owe roughly that much on average. So instead of you having to pay that big chunk, we're forcing you to pay early. So it's I understand the system, but it's very difficult because now I had to come up with that money last year for this year. So I've already paid a big chunk for this year. So I'm hoping I don't owe, but I could file my taxes. I've already paid a giant chunk. I could file my taxes now and it'd say, oh, actually, based off the whole income, that and expenses and all that stuff, at the end of the day, you still owe us like $3,000, right? So you still might owe. You might get a return because you've paid money towards your taxes, and maybe you actually owe less, and that's usually how it works, right? If you get a return. I haven't had a return in years, so I don't even know how that's going to feel if that happens. But what I'm saying is now, this is the situation for myself specifically, is it's the end of February, and I could officially file my taxes, right? You do your taxes, income, expenses, investments, whatever you want. And then, any payments you've made towards your taxes already, at the end of the day, they give you an amount. So you might have to pay that. Well, guess what? In March, by the middle of March, it's your first quarter, you have to pay what the government tells you need to pay for 2026 tax return. So 2025, we're in it, right? I have to start paying next month in March, by March 15th, a certain amount, which is a large chunk based off of apparently how much tax I've paid in the last little while. They average it out. So every third month, I need to pay this large chunk. So in March, it's not only do you have to maybe pay towards the taxes for last year, but you are required and it's necessary by law that you pay an amount specific based off of what they think you should pay to the government in advance for 2025 taxes. So that next year when you file your taxes, you've already contributed to them, so they already have their money. It's like paying in advance for like something that you might not need to pay for. It's really frustrating, especially like I said, when you need that money. For example, if you owe $5,000, for example, in March, well, that's $5,000 that you need to pay the government. It doesn't matter if you have it for savings, if you need to buy things for your kids or nothing, you have to pay that. So that's what a lot of people might not understand, is that especially as a streamer and the viewers and all that, they look at like how much you make and all the subs and the bits and all that, but they're very much so probably unaware that in March at the first quarter, you are now required to pay a giant chunk. So you could have like a really good January, a really good February, but then all of a sudden, a lot of that money needs to be used in order to pay your taxes for next year. for the following year, right? So it's hard to wrap your head around it a little bit, but that's kind of what the situation is right now. So it's very difficult to sit here and be like, yeah, I'm going to do my taxes, and oh, cool, I made this much, and okay, I expensed that much, and all right, everything's good. All right, moving forward. But it's not like that for a lot of people, and not like that for myself. Even if you have savings to pay your taxes, even if you have savings for next year's taxes already, and it's the start of the year, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because you don't get that money. They take a lot from you, and you work hard for your money. And the way cost of living is nowadays, I mean, we talk about this on stream a lot. I mean, eggs are like $8. It's ridiculous. Cheese is like $8, $9. It's ridiculous. You go buy a jug of juice, it's $6 to $7 for a jug of juice. That's not even real juice. It's just sugars. You know what I mean? So difficult to sit here for anybody, I think, and just be absolutely happy with paying taxes. But it must be done. Now, I've asked multiple times, multiple people, like, how do you do your taxes, this kind of stuff. One guy I know, a bigger streamer than I am, says he has an accountant that takes care of it. I'm hoping that his accountant does it right. I don't know how to do it necessarily the right way because I've been told multiple different things by the tax experts themselves, who are probably just guessing at the same time. But it's different because, like I said, you don't sell a product, you don't sell a service, you don't charge tax. We get our money from a different platforms, kind of like a third-party contractor. And even when talking to the government of Canada, literally the revenue agency that is in charge of all this kind of stuff, they indicate that no, you don't, here anyways qualify for an HST, GST, which is taxes. You don't qualify for that number to register because you don't actually charge tax. So at the end of the day, it's a matter of, if you're doing your taxes as a streamer, make sure you claim your income, all of it. Make sure you claim your expenses as much as makes sense. Don't claim things that you can get in trouble for, and just pay the big guy or the big girl upstairs, because at the end of the day, well, it is what it is. So with that being said, not the funnest topic today, but one that is necessary in any job, to be honest, to pay those taxes, and then just watch the rich get richer and your money go out of your pocket. But hey, that's why I don't have eggs in the fridge right now, because they're gosh darn too expensive. All right, it's tax time. Thanks so much for listening to my tax rant, I guess you can say. Like I said, I didn't go into super detail because it's going to be different for everybody. I don't know how you file taxes for streamers in the States and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, pay the big guy upstairs. If they're happy, you can be a little bit happy. Yeah, something like that. All right, as always, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.